While it can be sometimes boring, terrain can be one of the most enjoyable things to finally get painted up, as the look and feel they bring to the battlefield and display cases is amazing. Painting up large sets of terrain, however, can be quite tedious. To combat this, I have worked out a rather simple recipe I think makes a great way to paint up all my Into the Dark boarding action terrain and anything that's overly metallic, such as cranes or reactors. So today, let's go over what I did using some of this big pile of boarding action terrain you can see here. Starting off, I got a section of the wall and used the Warpainter Fanatics brush-on primer to give a nice primer to the plastic before taking some matte black from the Fanatic lineup and spraying it all over as a base coat. I've really grown to liking the brush-on primer on the plastic before doing the black base coat, merely because I find the paint will wear off the plastic less with a proper primer. So I stand corrected on a previous video about that one. With that done, we're going to take some Runelord brass and we're going to overbrush the miniature here. Now, overbrushing is very similar to dry brushing. It's just we're using a bit more paint and we're not exactly caring too much about picking out the highlights. We want to pick out the details, but we kind of want the paint everywhere. Not quite covering all the black, but basically everywhere we want to have this on every panel. We don't want it to be just picking out the raised edges, but we do want to make sure we open the door and get all the details on the doors as well. With that completed on both sides, we're going to take some lead belcher, and this is going to be a regular dry brush. Again, we're not focusing on the extreme highlights. We do want to get this on most of the panels and most of the edges. We don't want to get it into the deep recesses. This will help that previous brass layer transition to a more of a steely color, and that will help create variety in the metal as well as create the sense of erosion in some areas, etc. So this is just a really easy way to get metallic variety. We're going to repeat the dry brushing step at least 2 more times with some plate mail metal and some Stormhost silver, and I'll just let the music play while these clips run. Now for the final dry brush, the Stormhost Silver, we're really looking to pick out the extreme highlights. Whereas before we wanted edges with each successive layer, now we just want to really pick out the nuts and bolts and the extreme edges that are facing the light source. Wherever you might want it, doesn't really matter. Have very little paint on the brush and just lightly dry brush the whole thing, and you won't have to worry about spilling silver onto the parts you don't want. Do that throughout the whole miniature before moving on to the next step. Next up, I'm going to spray some Nuln oil all over the miniature. This will unify the various metallics that we've just put on, as well as make everything darker, a little bit more grim darky, and really accentuate our recesses there. So just spray this throughout the entire miniature and make sure you get behind the doors, etc. And here's where we are at halfway through. The rest of this is just going to be picking out various details. So this is honestly the bulk of this terrain piece done. The first thing I did was pick out the wires using some red and greens. I used pure red and green skin from the Warpaint Fanatics lineup to paint the various cablings and pipes, as well as valves and handles throughout this piece. Now there's a couple of little special metallic details on this miniature, or on this terrain piece, sorry. So we're going to use some Screaming Bell to pick out the plaques on this kind of like the door hinge here, which I believe is symbolizing where you're going. I'm not 100% sure what these two symbols are supposed to mean. Maybe you're on the way to the workshop. And there's going to be a couple more panels on the other side of this as well that need this treatment. So pick those out very carefully. There's one here on the door and the other on this, what I'm assuming is a panel access. Again, that another gear icon. Don't know what it means. I'm going to assume it's a maintenance hatch of some sort and give it a little bit extra embellishment. For the various lights and screens on the terrain piece, I have chosen to take some white from the Warpainter Fanatics lineup and pick out the details. So mainly the screen on both the broken and the fully not broken screen here on, I guess, the cogitators for the door. And we're going to pick out the two lights overhead of the door, as well as the two lights on the back side of this miniature here. These are all going to get different contrast paints to really help bring out a quick and easy lighting effect. But for now, paint them all with the exact same base coat of white. Might take a couple coats to get perfectly smooth there. While we wait for that to dry in between coats, I quickly took some strong tone wash and just washed all of the cabling that we had done up in a previous step. This was going to add some recess shading to it, as well as hopefully fix and hide any overspill we may have made during the previous steps. With that done, we're also going to take some Carabug Crimson, or you could use a Reikland Flesh Shade, doesn't really matter, and go over the Screaming Bell metallic plaques to, again, give some recess shading and some variety of the surface there. While those washes dry, we took some Screaming Skull, or I took some Screaming Skull rather, and painted up all the skulls throughout the miniature, or the terrain piece, and made sure they had a nice solid coat. With the coat dried, we then took some strong tone wash and picked out all of the skulls to recess shading, provide more depth to these decorations here, I guess. I don't know why they're stacking skulls on a spaceship, but whatever. For the lights, for the two lights above this door here, we're going to use some Imperial Fist contrast and just get it all over the white bits that we painted up earlier. If you want, you can do a little bit of overspray and get some OSL. It's not really required. Tesseract Glow was used for the working screen, as it is properly lit and functional, so it will have a fully bright light. And again, any overspill is just free OSL. I then took some Bale Tan Green to fill in the screen for the broken display. Kind of like when you come into like a broken computer in a Fallout game and it still has kind of like the backlighting in it, but the screen is clearly busted. It's kind of what I was going for here. I think I achieved that. So we have this mixture here that looks like a regular screen functioning and another one that's been punched through or shot. Finally, we're going to take some Ball Red and liberally apply it, a little bit thinned down, to the lights in the back here. I figured these are like emergency warning lights. They're clearly not for raw visibility, so I've given them this kind of red hue here. Now with all of that done, I took some Wraithbone and quickly and gently picked out the epicenters of all of the different light segments. So on these guys here, I picked out 5 little segments, the top, bottom, left, right, and middle of them, with a little dot of Wraithbone. This is acting as a highlight, essentially. We don't want to go overly insane. We have too many of these panels to pick up. We don't want it to look like crap either, so this is a nice in-between. Because now we're going to take some plate mail metal and go back over the various supporting, I guess, struts of the light that keeps the glass in place. So we're going to go over the ones on the front here and just clean up all of the yellow that has overspilled onto that. And we're going to repeat the same on the back side where the ball red was painted on. As you can see, you get a much crisper light when done like this. And for the full results of the light, here you can see we have a very easy highlight. We've achieved some very easy depth. The contrast paints have also provided us various variety, so it doesn't look like a fake, painted on tone. It looks natural, which is exactly what we want. Before we go, don't forget to give it a matte varnish, and please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in a few weeks from now. Peace.